already, and then when you compound all of this stuff that's going on top of it, magnifies everything. It makes everything that much more confusing, that much more of an emotional roller coaster. I just feel like we're all on this up and down roller coaster, and I just wanted to provide a space to kind of talk about it. Like originally we were going to go live today, we were going to talk about protection for Black men and what that looks like. Again, kind of piggybacking off a conversation we had started previously, and then we had Gino who was going to come on and kind of share his perspective. A couple of weeks ago, I had the pleasure of sitting on a panel discussion about mental health, and it was really, really an amazing event where we just kind of talked about a lot of stuff when it came to mental health. And we had a gentleman on there who I hope to have on the show soon that had a lot of like jewels that he shared and just talked about. So I really want to do more where we're focusing on mental health for men. I feel like we don't have enough conversations about that, and we do need to center focus that. And I think that this is even important part of that too for men who may not be looked at as having like the same kind of anxiety, worries, or concerns about their kids and what all of this, means for their children, their own fears. And I don't think men talk about that enough. So when you commented yesterday, like, can we talk about this today? I was like, we absolutely can. I think that you coming from a lot of perspective, especially as being in the school system, being a teacher, being there. So I thought it was just a good thing to kind of address today. Hopefully, offer some comfort as much as you can comfort people in a time like this. Whether that's meaning giving people the space to have that apathy right now because they so tired about other things, or giving people the space to be anxious, giving people the space to be sad. Like I'm all of it. Like when I say I've had a roller coaster, I'm all of it. So
Right.
um, I'm glad you made time today. May not be looked at as having like we got that echo.
No, I was clicking your link so I can share it. That's all.
Okay. I'm like, oh, it's me. I got that
No,
echo,
it's
right?
me. It's me. I'm sharing it. That's all.
Every time I can't tell sometimes with these with the internet has been kind of weird lately, but let's go ahead and jump into it. So, hello everybody, welcome. Nat will not be with us tonight, but we do have Dre, who is one of our honorary hosts, even though he won't take on the title. So we're here just trying to have a little conversation about some of the emotions, feelings, how to have the conversation with your kids after everything that's happened in the past few days actually, because I know that when everything happened in Buffalo, also my kids were concerned about that. And I have a son that always checks on me no matter where I'm going. When I leave the house, he's calling, how long you gonna be gone, when you coming back, what's happening, it's taking you too long. So even how that could have caused some concern, some fear, some vicarious trauma, which is something I want to talk about today. Some of us may be experiencing a lot of vicarious trauma, which is also a generational trauma that we don't talk about a lot. And so today we're just going to open up the space to just have a general conversation about all of the things that's been going on. For example, the Buffalo massacre and the massacre in Uvalde with the children. And so if you're in a good space to hear this, maybe you can't listen today, you can listen a different day, but feel free to drop comments in the chat, express your emotions. But we just wanted to have a space to kind of address what we all may be feeling right now. So, Dre, thanks for making time today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to get on board. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you. And so, Dre, for those people out there that may not know exactly what you do and why that's also important that we have your perspective on the conversation, can you share with everybody like what you do if they don't already know? You are in the school system, so share with
Yeah.
everybody about that.
Yeah. Thank you. Currently, I am at Hunter Perkins Learn Charter School. It's a school on the South Side, K through 8, and my role is a behavior interventionist. So basically, I work with supporting children and scholars, well, scholars and staff, in regards to maintaining behavior expectations as well as consequences, they're establishing rapport, just a lot. I like to relabel it as being a therapeutic dean because when you think dean of students, you think discipline, you
Mm-hmm.
think rigid, and you think punitive, but that's not really the case with us or with me. So it's more along the lines of being therapeutic. So we work along the lines of more SEL based strategies and less prisoner pipeline mentalities about how to handle some of the kids. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you would like to take care of them and bounce them to the suspension and everything like that,
Sometimes.
but the system just isn't designed for that anymore, and for a lot of different reasons. And so we're playing catch up with it. We're adjusting to what's going on at the best of our ability. And for us in the role of being admin, it's a different dance. Teachers don't have that same flexibility because they grew up and they have a different structure, way of thinking. So it's a lot of pushback about certain aspects of that. But that's what we're dealing with now. But I love my job. I love my job. I love my kids. I love what I do. So yeah.
It shows. It shows for those that don't follow, Dre. It shows like you love the kids, and I think that's something we share in common when it comes to making sure they have that SEL learning, and that we're having a more healing approach to how we're rearing them, because rearing children isn't just like a parental thing, like it's a village. Like when we don't have our kids and they're at school, you're like mom and dad, all of the staff, or just parents, however you identify. And so you're there taking the torch when we drop them off, each and every day. And so it really does take all of us. And so that's why I also think it's super important to have you here. And let's jump into it. Be first, start off with how you heard, how you feel about, or how you felt immediately hearing the things. I was in here working on my computer, clicking away from work, and um, just so happened to see something on Facebook. Um, because sometimes I'm looking and listening to things that I find on Facebook of like a post. I had accidentally exited out of that post and saw it was a like an update like from ABC, and I was like, wait a minute, what's happening? So I cut on CNN. And that's always the place to go when you want like live, like when something's happening in real time, like CNN gonna have it. You may not get it from the regular channels, but CNN will be covering it. So I was just kind of watching it, and it took me a minute to take in that it was babies and that it was actually like happening. It was like my brain just wasn't, it was like, wait, what is going on? Like an elementary school, like people were like, what's happening? And as I started watching it, my heart just immediately broke. Immediately broke. And I just thought about those kids. I thought about those parents that are waiting to hear, like, where, okay, is my child safe? Like, it was still parents outside at the time when it was happening, when I noticed that it was happening. And then I started thinking about how many times I've dropped my kids off at school and was like, see you later, right? Or gone to an assembly, or a parent, was a room parent for like a party, etc., and was like, see you in a minute. And all of these parents that were there just before this happened, what anguish they must be going through in having left their kids there, and this mad person came in and did this. And I just immediately started crying. Like I just cried for them. It's like, wow, you can't, like, who could, I couldn't even understand the train of thought a person would have to do that.
So with that, I mean, just and we got to back up on it a little bit because we got to go into talk about safe space. And
Mm,
when you talk about these safe spaces that we're supposed to have, that we've been brought up and grown up to believe in to have, um, with the exception of the four little girls in the church bombing that happened, in the '60s, Church is supposed to be a safe space. You see what happened with that scenario. Uh, Movie theaters supposed to be a
Mm-hmm.
safe space. This you saw what happened with that scenario. Uh, Malls supposed to be a safe space. You see what happened with that scenario. Schools, you know, the grocery store now. So all of these designated official quote unquote, seems to be naturally, thought to be a safe space. Now you have to have your head on a swivel, and it's not healthy to do that. That's not the nation. That's not the way we were raised. That's not the way that we are conditioned, but we're slowly getting into that, and it's a scary
Mm-hmm.
situation where you have places that are seemingly innocent, being decimated like this by people who just have their own agendas, and you're left figuring out why, because either they've killed themselves or they're killed by the cops, and only a few are still around to tell the tale, like this young man, out of Buffalo. But that's like a rarity. That's a rarity to find out the why, and even then, it's you got to wrap your head around that for a few years because of
Yeah.
that concept. It's so many layers to it, but it's scary because it's like you work at a school, and I know the last place you would think is for someone to have no connection to anybody, decide to just go and do this act,
Yeah.
a planned act. It isn't random where you just sit there and say, "Oh, I'm tripping." You're planning this. That means you're sitting stuff and writing stuff down. You're going over these scenarios, and what's also scary is the age. I know I'm jumping around, but
No.
it's the age. These aren't old people. These are young people
Yeah.
with their lives supposed to be ahead of them. And you have this hate, you have this structure of genocide on your heart, and you have these manifestos, you have these plans of action, and you come in, semi-trained from whatever background you have, whether it's video games or your own, practice and training. It's scary. It's scary. So today I had a parent. Well, I had a situation at my school. I can't get into detail, but I had a situation at my school, and a parent came up to talk about it. And their kid wasn't even involved, but the fact of the situation that happened has them so worried that they want to make sure that our our levels are up. And it's like, yes, we have no choice because I mean, you don't want to go in innocent anymore, thinking everybody's innocent, or it won't be this place because you don't have that luxury
Can
anymore.
we pause there because in discussing this whole thing with a friend, I think a lot of people in our community may want to deem things like this as like not a black community issue, like, where we don't go and do stuff like that at our schools, and so we don't have to worry about that. And I don't like that type of talk because it doesn't mean that it can't happen there, and we can't be so comfortable or so relaxed that this is not our community thing, where we're overlooking some of the dangers that can happen each and every day, and it doesn't stop it from being a possibility because we don't think it fits our MO. And I really want us to let go of that ideology that it's not a us thing because we don't do stuff like that. We're doing a
Mm-hmm.
lot of other stuff that is just as scary, just as unsafe for our kids to go to school every day. And there are things that are happening where we can't have this idea that it's not a us problem. It is a us problem. If anyone can feel comfortable with walking into any school whatsoever, I don't care what students attend that school, it is a us problem. It is something that we all should be intolerant of, and that we should be having our radar up about, and we should be discussing on what things we can do to make sure we're safeguarding our kids. And this is a conversation, I'm telling my age, but I was in high school when Columbine happened.
Mm.
And when it happened, my high school was like checking lockers. Like we showed up to school, was like police, like, metal detectors and people doing the metal thing all around and checking book bags and all of that stuff. Like they were on top of it, trying to safeguard the school, right? And so, this is a problem because that was when I was a what, freshman, sophomore in high school. And I've been out of high school for 20 years now, almost 21 years. So it's like this is still happening. It hasn't gotten any better. It can happen any place. It's not something that is just, you know, synonymous with one group of people. Like we're in a world right now where there's so much hate for one another. All it takes is for one person, one individual to be succumbed by that hate. And they can walk into any school if we're just thinking at it like, oh, well, our kids are safe because that's not a us thing. Like, what? No, we need to not look at it like that. It still affects us, and we need to be talking about that.
It's not a us thing for them kids in Texas. Those kids had nothing to do with anything. You
Facts.
know, they had nothing to do with anything. And someone who's not even connected to them went in there and just randomly shot stuff up. And I want to address. Shout out to Robert, by the way, Mr. Tate. I want to talk about this bully tag. Um, I think the word is being overused. I think it's being overused and sensationalized to a degree where everything isn't a bully situation, but the sensitivities of our youth have changed to a point to where everything is a trigger for them. And I'm not saying we came up differently. I mean, we did come up differently. I mean, but how they handle it now is so different. You know what I mean? It's just so different. Once again, referring to situations at school where kids were like, "I'm being bullied." I had talked to the kid today. I talked to the kid today, and I was like, "So, what exactly is going on?" And they're describing their situations, and I'm like, "Okay, is it specifically targeting you, or is it everybody?" It's like it's everybody. They talk about each other. Everybody's getting involved. I said, "Well, is it because they said something to you that make you mad, or is it something that's it's a difference between. So if I talk about you every day, if I pick you out every day to say something about you, your hair, your glasses, your earrings, whatever, that is a bullying situation. Okay, by definition, are we in agreement?
Wrong.
Somewhat,
Somewhat.
somewhat,
Only
somewhat.
because
But
I talk about this a lot in what I
right.
do. No, bullying is when you target anyone, and the idea is to threaten them or make them feel unsafe or
But
make
that's
them
the
feel
thing.
hurt or harmed in some way, whether that's mentally, emotionally, or physically.
So
So,
with that,
although, go ahead.
okay, so with that, okay, that's not the case. All these issues aren't the case. It's just talking about you. So am I harming you?
Yes. See that I think that so here's the thing and what I try and get like even my kids to understand because I have my oldest was bullied. And when I say by she was bullied, um there were various many people saying things about her that made her feel sad, made her feel
Mm-hmm.
unsafe, made her feel uncomfortable. And
Mm-hmm.
it was so bad that it was certain things that were happening that shouldn't be happening.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, I was bullied when I was younger in
Mm-hmm.
grammar school, and my bullying was also physical at times. So fighting, I grew up fighting physically a lot, getting into a lot of physical altercations with people, and it is harmful. And while we try and tell our kids, which but when I say by our kids, I mean as a community, and then me directly, me and Robert, is that we do want you to have tough skin because there's going to always be somebody that's going to try and ruffle your feathers or say something to you that's going to affect you. But what I think we need to also understand is that kids are up against a lot more than we're giving them credit for. So it may be somebody at school, or it may be a group of people that always play the dozens, right? And they're always joking with everybody. But you may say something to someone where they're having to experience some sort of abuse or bullying at home. So when a kid at school is pointing that out, that kid is internalizing that, and they're struggling because kids don't have a lot of emotional intelligence, which is why we're trying to get them to learn emotional intelligence. But that is a process. Like that has to be a conversation that's going to be continuing throughout their growth as they're in high school, etc. But we don't know what these kids are experiencing when they're not here, what type of other things are going on. So it takes that one person to say something that maybe they're hearing consistently at home, or they're being picked on about at home, or that someone is joking about them and that makes them feel insecure or don't love themselves or hate themselves. And so while we want to tell our kids to grow a tougher skin, we want them, in our culture, we always played the dozens, right? Everybody always talked about everybody. It used to be like this thing, we made a game into it, and we joke. Like we played the dozens within our family structures. We played the dozens as comedians, right? And so it's common to play the dozens. But I think that we need to stop making it seem as though everybody should process it in the same way, and everybody should be easygoing in the same way. So if a kid is saying, this doesn't make me feel safe, or when you're talking about me in this way, it affects me in this way, instead of us saying, hey, grow some tougher skin, I've dealt with worse, we need to start unpacking like why that kid is feeling that way. Because it may not have nothing to do with that particular instance, but they could be hearing it someplace else on a consistent basis. So it feels like bullying because it's compounded with whatever other experiences they're having.
So with okay, so to your point, and I don't disagree with any of that. So to your point, um, we're talking about third, second, kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth grade, whatever case may be. Do they have the ability to assess that?
They have the only capacity to recognize that something makes them feel
Right, but no,
unsafe or
I'm
makes
talking
them
about
feel
in the
sad.
classroom. In the classroom, do the students have the ability to assess when someone else has these issues? They don't know their home life. They don't know none of their backgrounds. They just know what they
They
know
don't, but that
environmentally.
doesn't take away from the fact that it still feels like bullying to this particular kid.
Right, I understand that. I get that. It
So
feels like right. It's only subjective to your perspective. Right, your perspective is I feel this, and they have a right to feel how they feel. But what I'm saying is, where does that line draw and balance? Because in one hand, we're saying cultural. This is a cultural thing that we've been doing. That's going to be done, whatever the case may be. So, do we eliminate this in favor of the therapeutic aspect? And if we do that, how do we? Because once again, this is in a school. We
so
can't
what
control
I
what goes
think
on.
needs to
No,
happen,
hold on. We
go
can't
ahead.
control what goes on. We can't control what goes on in their home and whatever the case may be. Yes, we can teach kids to be more mindful. Yes, we can teach kids to be more aware of what they're saying and to be apologetic if they hurt feelings. And we can teach kids to advocate for themselves if they feel that way. We can do all of that, but they still got to go home. And they
But
still got to go
so
home,
that
and they still got to deal with whatever we're going to deal with
they
that we
still
can't
have to
control or
go
support.
home, and we only have so much control over what goes home. But when we're talking about safe haven too, I don't want us to over like step the fact that safe haven for a lot of kids is school, because it's taking them out of whatever situations they're living in, whatever environments that they may have. So you can't take that child out of this one environment that may be toxic and then put them in another and then be like, you know what? Well, we can't control what happens when you leave here, so we should all just kind of grow a tougher skin.
No, no, no. I'm
School
not
is
saying
a
that.
safe.
I'm not saying that. But
Okay.
how do we know? How do we know everybody's background? How do we know
It
everybody's
shouldn't matter
background
though. It shouldn't
coming
matter, and
in?
it shouldn't matter what someone else's background is. What we should be doing is exactly what you said. Constantly teaching students about being mindful of how they speak to one another. And the fact that you don't know, like that's something that I tell my kids. So for example, my oldest daughter, one of her bullies had a lot going on So he was really bullying her because he was going through so much at home. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that didn't mean much of anything to me because it's like, just because I get it that you're going through something at home, but my child isn't your punching bag, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can say that my approach then, when I was trying to get the situation rectified at school, shifted a little bit because I know how trauma works, right? So it's like, I want him to leave my kid alone, and that's not okay. What he's doing to her is not okay because it is affecting her in a way that, she was depressed, she was suicidal. And so this has to stop. Like, it can't be my child. But then I also started asking the school, like, if you know that this child is up against a lot, what are you doing to help him so that he isn't taking out his emotions on my daughter? Because he's a kid. And we know kids are cruel. They are cruel. They don't have the emotional intellect to be able to process their feelings appropriately. And so they lash out, they react from a trauma response. I mean, we have adults that are still doing that still
Mm-hmm.
have those issues. So it's not fair to expect a kid to have that capacity, right? So what we do is we keep a model when it comes to school, that because you don't know what someone else is going through, it's just like we see that post circulating all the time, where it's like, you never know what battles people are facing beyond just seeing them, right? So you want to be kind. You want to teach these kids, as Latoya said, I hope I said that right, in it's Latoya, that you respect one another, because you may be going through something that we know nothing about, and you don't want that to be reciprocated to you. So I feel like what you said is spot on. We need to be talking about SEL, which I'm so happy that that's really like mandatory in schools now. We need to be making sure that we teach kindness and respect, and we need to be holding that standard, upholding it all the time. And so there need to be consequences where kids, you do have some kids that they gonna stand 10 toes to the ground. If they hurt somebody, they may not apologize. But then there has to be consequences because you're making a choice to inflict harm on that person. So here's your detention, or, let's try to figure out how we can curb that. But it's not okay either to say, well, you know what, this is part of the culture. This is what we did. So grow a tougher skin. Kids aren't going to grow that tougher skin. And these are some of the things and experiences that are going to shape them into adulthood. And not everybody knows how to deal with trauma and grow out of their trauma. Trauma is following each and every one of us around. I know that there are so many examples each of us could bring up when we're like, this happened to me as a kid and it shaped the way I feel about this. And so while I do agree in the fact of, when it comes to bullying, I feel like it's become a shield for detrimental behavior, like for what this man did. Um, I do think that people are like, well, they were bullied, so have compassion. I can't have compassion for any person that see fit to take some assault rifles into a school or into a grocery store and harm other people. That had nothing to do with your trauma, by the way, that had nothing to do with what experiences you had. And so that's where it falls flat for me, where it's like the bullying is like, yeah, I'm sympathetic. But I also think that that's why conversations like this are important, where we're thinking about how we can really be tackling bullying and some of those feelings early, so that these adults aren't growing up to be violent. That is why we are experiencing a lot of them. We're tired. Everybody's tired.
And traumatized.
Everybody's traumatized, everybody's tired. um I mean, as human beings, each of us are experiencing exhaustion in some capacity. We are all freaking exhausted. There are things that our kids are going through. I was just talking to Robert before we hopped on, because my daughter came in yesterday. It threw me completely off because my daughter's 15. She'll be 16 in October. And out of nowhere, she came in here and was upset about reproductive justice and rights. And I was just like, now I'm talking to Robert on the phone and I'm like, wait, what's happening? They're banning abortion and they're telling women what they can do with their bodies. And I'm just infuriated and it's not getting any better. And she was just going on this rant. Now, it caught me off guard because me and Robert was talking about something completely different. But I was like, okay, well, let's talk about it. And I told him later, I said, this threw me way off because I was not expecting for her to march into this living room and be freaking out about abortion rights. But I was like, I kind of understand. And he said, well, why did it throw you off? I said, I still have to remind myself that this is a completely different generation of
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
They have an accessibility to information that in my generation, parents kind of had a whole lot of autonomy and control over to a degree. They don't need to come to us for their source of information. When there were some things that I wanted to know, I had to ask my mama. And if my mama didn't want to tell me, I let people around me kind of tell me those things. And usually it was wrong because it was my peers that didn't know nothing about anything anyway, right? But kids don't need us in that capacity anymore because the Google search will come up with so
Mm-hmm.
much information. And so we don't have the same type of control or dictatorship over what they are exposed to, what things they come across. And so we need to look at that as a double-edged sword in all ways because bullying is a really, really, really real thing. And it don't just stop in school. For me, I got bullied at school and I came home and that was it. I didn't have to see them people until tomorrow. It didn't stop me from feeling that way. But now your bully follows you home on the internet. If they got your phone number, they're going to text you. They're going to do all of these things. And so I just think that there's so many layers to what's happening with our country and why people are tired, why kids are tired, why people are hopeless. And we can't overlook some of the layers. We have to unpack all of it. We have to discuss all of it because it's so much that's affecting it. But to back to the original point, I agree with you that it's becoming a shield for some of these people, some of these terrorists that are going around killing folks. And it's not an excuse. Like I can't have that much compassion to a point where all lives can just be at stake because you were affected in that way. And we have to find a middle ground. And I think that's where everybody is kind of at. Like, how do we stop this from happening, but address this? And what about the Second Amendment? And it's my head
Let's
is.
take yeah. Let's compartmentalize this. I don't want to discuss the politics until damn near to the end of the
I
conversation
agree.
because that's a whole nother level. Let's
I
focus on our
agree.
lane and let's focus on what our lane needs to be because what you're talking about is available. The resources are there. I've seen them. I utilize them, but they're not being overall utilized by everyone.
What resources are you talking about
I'm
specifically?
referring to the resources in regards to what we talked about teaching our kids how to process, and, how to be bully busters, and how to not buy into this mentality. They have programs. I don't know if you know anything about Second Step. Have you heard of Second Step?
Hmm. Of course.
I love Second Step. I first got a hold of it like a year or two ago during
Hmm.
the pandemic, and we used some of that for our kids. And I love what it does. I love the concept. I love the execution of it, but everybody doesn't use it and fundamentals of it.
I think
And I think it helps because it helps in regards to for me, and this is just my experience. It helps because for the teachers, it helps them establish relationship with the kids to enable your words to kind of carry more weight. So you're not just teaching, but you're cultivating and you're nurturing. You're not just giving them facts about the class. You're actually talking to them and getting them to understand why, not because I said so, because that's rigid, but the why, because of XYZ, But Second Step, depending on the grade level, depending on the subject matter, I like it. I know there are other things, but I personally like it because of what it is done or what it can do if you utilize it effectively. Everybody doesn't utilize stuff like that or resources. Period. They kind of just deal or don't deal. And that's the thing. You and me are two people, you know. I know somebody else that does it. That makes three. You know somebody else that makes four. But we're dealing with a very huge majority of people who don't utilize resources to help these kids out. So when I look at, you know, the how on how to fix it, I honestly think that it's a lot of approaches. You know, it's a lot of different approaches going on that needs to be addressed, but it's not being addressed overall.
So
Um,
let me come
it's
in
being
real quick.
talked about in a reactive state. Like we're reacting now. We're
I
reacting
agree
now
with that.
to it as opposed to being proactive. And I'm tired of being reactive. I want to be proactive. I want us to be on the same page about what's going on and everything. I want us to. I don't want to have to keep preaching to the fifth grade about something in May that should have been established back in March or December or or August. It's like this stuff is not. We shouldn't be having this conversation in May about bullying because we already know from our concepts in the beginning of the school year bullying should be one of the first things that's been addressed, but it can't be just addressed by me. It has to be addressed by the teacher and me and the parent.
I was finna say that because that's the point that I wanted to kind of cut in and say is that there's a whole lot of adults that are bullies. So when we're talking about being reactive, this is the generational curse part of it. Like it didn't just start with this with them. Like you
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of grown-ups that are bullies. Like they are literally walking around bullying people.
Mm-hmm.
All of these shows, these this culture is very, very what's the I can't even I'm drawing a blank, reality TV heavy, right? Where the whole premise is to bully each other and have arguments all the time and all of these fights, and it's what people look to see. They want the drama, they want the all of that. So how can we really honestly not have a after reaction to it, like a kind of band-aid approach to it, because now we have the wound, so let's just stitch it up, where it's far beyond just this group. Like there are people my age, there are people older than us that are bullies. There are some parents that are bullying their children. Like, we talk about adultism all the time. We've had a show here on when we talked about adultism and how that works. Most of us grew up, whether we want to admit it or not, in some capacity being bullied by our parents because our parents were our parents, and that's they had the right. They brought us into this world, right? So they should be able to say, do whatever they want to do because they're our parents. So it's so deep rooted, it's so far embedded in how we treat each other in our society. It's kind of difficult for us to have like a preventative approach completely. We're still gonna have to do some of that, like
Because you can't go in nobody's house and tell them. But you can't go in nobody's house and tell them to stop bullying their child.
you cannot.
It ain't gonna work.
You absolutely
You can
cannot.
barely tell them to go onto Power School and watch their kids' grades. And
Listen,
you work in the school, so
facts.
you can barely do that. So
Yeah,
imagine
it's
trying to get
true.
your parents to understand the fundamentals of your child is behaving like this, and you hear the parent, and it's like I see where it comes from. So you still got to maintain. You can't control it. So, and
Facts.
that's the frustrating part that we as educators and counselors and everybody else, social workers, we deal with that. We cannot change the majority. I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. We cannot change the majority because I don't believe that we have the capacity to change the majority. I believe that we have to work on a minority in very selective strikes in order to for it to branch out to influence others. I want to say infect, but influence others. Okay, I was talking to some scholars today, and I was like, I want to make y'all good behavior ambassadors, and it was like, what's that? And I was like, well, your class is a little bit rambunctious. Let's talk about what to do right and how to be that person, how to be that, and then they walked and talked it with me. They was like role models. I was like, yeah, be role models for your class, and you be role models for your class. And your job is to get one other person to be a role model too. So I picked two. Okay, out of those two, I told them to pick one and make them your buddy, and then they have to pick somebody else, and then eventually this should happen in the beginning of the school year. I'm gonna try it next year actually, but I thought about it now, so it's late. But but
Okay.
I really want to talk about like how to just start with a few to be influences for the many, and
And
that's
I
all
think
we
that's
can
what
do.
we all do. I think that's
Now,
what we're
I
all
think
trying to
we
do.
talked about. I know we're trying, but I really think we should really put something down to make it happen, to make that a campaign. We should really and I say we, whoever are interested parties and bodies, we can make it happen. Let's start making that a campaign, because that's the trick of the matter is we put it out there and expect it to be done, and then go back and check it out later, and whatever. I think we need to attack this as if we're doing a social experiment with the
But I
same
think that that's
fervency.
important even to do with adults, which is why we have we gonna talk. This is the whole point of that,
Right,
and
right,
having
exactly. Like platforms like
conversations,
this, right, right,
because
right.
it's
Get
gonna
out there,
be
exactly.
we. So the whole plan is to start making the changes while we still can as
Excuse me.
adults, so that we're planting those seeds, and that as generations come, we're losing a generational curse here, a generational curse there. And so we have to keep doing it. And it's not going to be a two generational shift. It's going to
Right,
take many generations. Something I say a lot lately is it took so many generations to dissolve us. It's going to take tons of generations to resolve us. We are going to need time. It's going to have to be a cycle, because it didn't just, it didn't
right,
just happen in one generation. It's been happening for generations past us since slavery. And probably, I know we talk all about slavery, because for us as Black Americans, that's where a lot of the disconnect came for us. But we don't know what type of traumas and generational factors would have been if we hadn't been stripped of that culture and floated over here. So it's like every generation, every ethnicity, every group has generational trauma and generational curses. And we absolutely are not going to be able to fix it until each of us in our communities within are doing the work. And we're doing some within ourselves where we're constantly internalizing our growth, right? Where I'm saying, you know what, my mom and dad didn't get this right because this affected me this way. So I'm going to change this, and this. Now, as a parent who is cognizant of my generational trauma, who's in their healing journey, and who is actively doing the work to break some of our generational curses within our DNA line, within our ancestry, I still have already managed to make a few mistakes
right.
that
Yeah,
now
I mean, it's setbacks.
it's
It's
in.
setbacks, but you don't ever stop. You know.
Exactly. So my hope is that where I did get it right in some of these aspects, that'll pass on and flow easily to my grandchildren if I have them. I'm hoping that my two children say, well, when my mom did this, although she meant well, it affected me like this, and this, and I'm not going to pass this on. So now I've broken these chains, and my kids are now breaking these chains, and then their kids will do the same. And so
Right,
it's going to take like this cycle, and we need to be attacking, yes, small groups, but it needs to be some adults in there, because I do feel like, as to a point, Tam, thank you for being with us. Thank you all for your comments. I am seeing them and trying to float them across the screen when they come through. But a comment that, my buddy Tam, that said here is that, she believes that if parents knew better, they would want to do better. And I think that there are enough parents out there that's having an awakening, that's like, I want to do better, but they're still outnumbered, because there's a whole lot of parents that are 10 toes to the ground. This is how I'm doing it. I
yeah.
ain't changing for nobody. You can't tell me what to do. We still got a lot more of those than we need to actively like make the shift. Go ahead. I see you. I see you. You know what? I'm proud of you, because normally I get the.
I don't have. We're not on Zoom anymore, so that's why. I'm about to give me a cutout and just put it on screen.
Not a,
But to your point with that, from my observation, and I'm gonna say observation because not necessarily a study, but it should be a study. But from my observation, yes, there are parents that want to do better. I think the problem with that is, I think the pride of admitting that they need help and that they could be wrong and fallible. I think that's the main detriment to all of this. I have sat with parents with kids that are in the system, and they didn't just get there overnight. Okay, they have gotten there over years, years. Okay, 17, 18, at least 10 years of those years have been in the system. At least have been in the system since 9 to 10, and they're 17 to 18. So they're already institutionalized. They're already in a situation. So when you look at it, okay, and your kids, I don't know nothing about your kids, but I'm assuming that they're going to be good. Okay, I'm assuming they're good, and if they
they
cut up,
are.
they're not cutting up on a daily basis. Can we agree with that?
I have fantastic,
Okay,
phenomenal
great.
children.
So with
I'm
that
so
being said,
so grateful.
so let okay, ima- imagine what it's like to be a parent that has to have a phone call about their son or their daughter on a weekly basis, almost daily, but weekly basis, for the almost the same behaviors that's almost constant. Okay, then depending on the level of the kid, it escalates. Now, as a parent who's working, you're doing your honest living, your 9 to 5, your 12, whatever you're gonna do, your hours, to get those phone calls, to get those texts, to get that stuff. Johnny ain't doing this. Johnny not doing his work. Johnny's cutting up in class. Johnny's fighting. Johnny's doing XYZ. That is weighing on you because you're tired. And it is, and depending on what grade they are in, it didn't just come out the blue. The
Hmm.
same behavior they're doing in fifth grade, they're probably doing in fourth grade. They're probably doing in third grade. You see what I'm getting?
I do.
So you're going with people who've been dealing with this for years. At a certain point, they check out. I'm gonna curse. Excuse me for saying it. They check the fuck out because they don't know what else to do on their end. Never mind, never mind the people at the schools or whatever that give them advice, give them support, give them resources, give them everything they could to do to help to get it done. They have checked out because they feel that they dropped the ball somewhere, but they don't know where. Okay.
Hmm.
Then it's the age old excuse, they don't do this at home. Of
So
course not, because they're
those
at home.
are so I and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the parent that is just exhausted and exasperated, because I have been that parent and I struggle. Although I have two well behaved children, my kids are well behaved. I don't have behavioral issues out of them. I have one child that despises school. So my call every single day was, I know this kid is like gifted, but she doesn't do her work and she's failing and she shouldn't be failing, because I know that you're working with her and you're here because I know what type of parent, I'm the parent that checks grades all the time. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know what's going on. Every teacher has my direct phone number. Text me, email me, call me. They have all my email addresses, including Oh We Gonna Talk. Okay, this is for Oh We Gonna Talk page. But if you can't reach me at these other ones, email me here. I want to know what's going on. So I'm that parent. So I got that call that I know you're doing everything you can, but why is this kid still? And I've been that parent, like, Lord, I don't know what she needs. I don't know why she doesn't want to just do it, because when she decides to do her work, it's easy. I can't, if she's not willing to do the work, I can't get her in an environment that's going to challenge her. I'm trying all of these different things to motivate her, and she's just like, yeah, I don't. want no parts of school. It's boring. It's not helpful. I don't understand why I want to do it. Nope, I'd rather do this. I'd rather do this. And so that's what I'm gonna do. So I feel like that parent is a little different from the parent that's, well, he don't do this at home. I feel like that's the denial parent. That is the, hey, I think it's you and it's something going on at home, instead of maybe they aren't doing it at home, but why then, if they are doing it at home, my question would be, I wonder why they're doing this at school. Not what they
Because no
don't.
one could put hands on them. I'll give you a perfect example. They can't put hand. We can't put hands on them in the school. We have to, be 100% therapeutic and patient and kind and everything else. And at home, they can get knocked around. It is what it is. They
It's
can
true.
get shut down. They can take away their stuff. They can go in. We can't go. I can't go in your house and snatch your kids' electronics.
But
Only you can.
if you're the parent and you're getting that call, you should be snatching their electronics.
I mean, it happens too, but there are kids that say they got their whole stuff snatched away, but they don't have nothing to live for right now, so they don't care. They learn to live without it. And it's like you got all of this stuff that I would like to have,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't have because your behavior. Yet you don't change your behavior. I don't understand that. When I was in trouble, they snatched everything out of my room but the radio, and I was sitting there with radio and books for a long
Oh,
time.
I even had my radio snatched. So
When I
you at
had
least
radio,
go
I had to
watch
wake
the
up.
radio.
I had no time it was. I had no clock.
Oh, they made sure I had a clock.
It was
So
a clock. Well,
I had a whole.
it was a clock
They was
radio. You
like,
know what it was?
here go your clock. You know what time it is. Here go your alarm. Because I would have my whole everything taken away, and I wasn't doing. In hindsight, this is a conversation I have with my parents a whole lot, because my parents were very tough on me. And so I'd had strict parents, but they weren't as strict as some people's parents may have been, but they were strict. And it was just like, man, I was actually like a really good kid. I wasn't going around doing stuff, but when I got out of line, baby, my parents was like, oh, you can't even step over the threshold, like not even a little bit, before I pull you back in. And I think that I have this conversation with my older brother all the time, is that the generation where I'm in, when it comes to our kids, we realize that that type of strictness didn't resolve a lot of issues. What it did was build a lot of distrust between kids and their parents. And so we're trying to find that happy medium. And one of the things that I talk with my brother about at times is like, we joke between the two of us, when our kids do something, we be like, we went too far to the other side, because we know how these things were. And we were like, this wasn't the way. And I don't want to do that. But what happened was we went too far. Here's a prime example. My kids, now, if you're black, and if somebody, I know y'all gonna feel me on this, you clean the house as a kid. Your parents went to work, but you had school, and you had to make sure them dishes were still washed. You had to make sure you took whatever out the freezer when you got home. Whatever your mama said take out when you get home from school before you went to school, you better make sure you take it out for dinner, or it's gonna be problems. You had to sweep and mop and clean bathrooms and everything else, plus your homework. I was in high school. I had a job. I had school all day, and I still had to clean up and do my chores every day. And I bet I went to bed without making sure those chores were done. Now, as an adult, when I became a parent, I was like, I hated that. And I felt like it was unfair. And parents would always say, well, I go to work every day. It's like, okay, but the same amount of time that you're at work, I'm at school all day doing schoolwork. And then I got to come home and still bring my work
What are
home.
you doing? What are you doing? What are
Right?
you doing? Yeah, I know.
And it's
I
like,
know.
and I still got to clean up the whole house. Like, I'm
I'm
tired
traumatized
of
off of
it.
that. Yeah, I know.
So I was traumatized from that. I hated that as a kid. It made me feel like a servant. It was just like, man, like this is not fair. Like, I get it that you go and pay the bills, but I'm doing 8 hours of school is 8 hours a day, and then I have homework, and then if I had a job, I had homework and a job. And so I didn't want that for my kids. So I was like, my kids are not going to be the indentured servants around the house. Like, I'm just not going to do it to them. But they got the smallest chores. Okay. They have the smallest chores now. Like cleaning in our household is a family thing. Like we all do our part. But they have the smallest chores. And if I don't have to tell these kids 3 or 4 times a day, for example, my son's job is to empty the garbages in the bathrooms, right? I'll go in there and it's paper towels spilling out the garbage. And it's like, sir, have you? And he in there killing a coconut crab on Minecraft. Son, have you, while you in the coconut crab going to battle, have you done your chores today? I did my chores. When was the last time you did your chores? I think I did them yesterday. Impossible. There's no way you did them yesterday. Please go check. And so now they're lazy and they don't want to clean up behind themselves. And me and my brother will sit there and be like, we went too far to the other side. Like I see why they wanted us to have that. So I feel like we're still trying to find that
No,
happy
you
medium.
just come in, game check. If I come in, ain't no talk, ain't no conversation. Game is going off. Everything else used to be, Ma, I don't care. You know, it's like you just got to snatch the cord,
Oh, I
cut
have
off
an
the
app.
Wi-Fi, do whatever you got to
I
do.
have an
Like
app on
no,
my phone that shuts it down. So I don't argue. I just shut them down now, put a little message in there, and be like, you know, and I make the message funny, but they be annoyed. They be in the middle of something real good, and it be like, pause, your activity has been paused. Sometimes I say, see mommy or daddy for more information. I'll put a
yeah,
funny little message in there. So
you automated their discipline. I like that.
I love that app. They hate it. And when I tell people about it, they be like, can you please stop torturing children everywhere? I'm sure some child somewhere is going to, you know, have that inflicted on them. Good for them.
Yeah,
Parents
I
need to
ain't
take
torturing.
that back.
That's called that is new age discipline because that's the best way we can
Yes.
do things now. And it is what it is. We are adapting to the society that we have. You know,
Yep.
that's it. That's it. Um. Well, we had totally like got off our base about the kids. Because I thought about it again, but going back to the bullying. Start with the bullying. The kid got bullied.
Right.
Um. Let me just say that somebody knew something and it hurts them more because they didn't say anything about both guys. I'm quite sure they weren't 100% loners where nobody said anything or knew anything, whatever the case may be. But it just really hurts me to know that we have these young people, and I said it already, having all of this hate and having this rage where they want to feel like inflicting. And somebody had made a post today, and I thought about sharing it and everything, or a comment that said, I'm gonna paraphrase it, I don't have it exactly in front of me, but our kids are conditioned to react with violence first. And I thought about that, and I'm like, you're right. No one is, I don't say no one, but they're responding to they are responding to violence before
Where
anything
do
else.
you think that? But that's a generational curse in itself, and we gonna talk about that on this show because I think that that's discipline and physical discipline is a really big part of that. We grew up getting our asses whooped if you got out of line, and I think I was probably one of the last generations that ass whooping was accessible to anybody that was part of your village. So we got physical discipline at school. So for those that knew, I went to a black scholastic academy, still stands to this day. And our gym teacher, for example, used to have a plastic bat.
Mm,
And when we got an order, he would hit us with that bat. I've had teachers that had rulers taped together, and when you got a pocket, depending on one teacher, her name was Mrs. Cunningham. She had a yardstick, a few of them taped together, And when you got a line, it was like literally a chart on how many hits you got on the hand for it. So, like when you got a penalty, you had your hands whooped. It was holding phone books in the squatting position, doing not suicides. What's the one where you squat on the
I can't remember. I can't remember right now,
and
but
holding
yeah,
phone books? Like that was a
I
type
know.
of discipline that we got, and I was one of the last generations. If you got doing some stuff in the neighborhood and an adult caught you doing it, or that adult had permission to whoop your butt, and that was it. That was all. So, although we could say like, yeah, we got our asses whooped when we were little, and that kept us in line. I think that also had some trauma in it. I don't physically discipline my kids, and I also don't have to. I remember the last time that I actually extended discipline in that way, and then shortly after that, my child, my daughter, my oldest, we were watching something on TV, and it's a movie that came on some years, like I was in high school when this came on. It's called No One Would Tell. And it was Cameron Diaz and Fred Savage in this movie. And what happened was they were in a teen dating violent relationship. Fred Savage was abusive to Cameron Diaz, and then he ended up killing her at the end of the movie, right? And so when my oldest came in while I was watching this movie, because they were showing it on Lifetime, she came in at the point where he had just beat her. And the next day, he was apologetic. He was like, I'm so sorry. I just have all these emotions when I do that. I love you. I did it because you made me angry and you embarrassed me. If you hadn't have embarrassed me, I wouldn't have done this, this, and this. And my baby was like, I mean, well, she should forgive him. And I was like, what? No, 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 never. Like, never, 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 never. You don't ever see that happen with daddy. Like, that's a no, no. You don't forgive that. If it ever happens, it's not acceptable. Like, no. And she said, but he loves her. And he just was, she embarrassed him. She did something she shouldn't have done. And if they're in a relationship, you don't do that to your person. I said, no, that's not true. Like, I don't care what. Nobody has the right to hit you like that. And she was like, well, you give us spankings because you love us, and we do stuff that embarrass you what was wrong. And I was like, I was like, no, no, that's it. That was it for me. My kids get disciplined. Um, Everything that happens is a conversation. I need them to know why they're being disciplined, why they have a consequence, why this upset me, why this was okay. And I don't discipline them while I'm in the heat of the anger either.
Hmm.
I give myself time to calm down. And so that's the learning thing, that skill that we need to learn as adults. When I'm going to discipline my kids, they get disciplined when I am calm, and I don't do it out of anger, because I want them to understand the importance of not reacting to anger, not reacting to your emotions, and having a clear head when you're making decisions, trying to go back to the drawing board and process what's going on. And so while I do understand how some of us can look back on this kind of like, well, those whoopings made me who I am today. If it wasn't for a parent that kept me in line, I wouldn't be this and that. Well, I don't think that's at all true too, because we know a whole lot of people that got whoopings that were in gangs in the
Oh yeah,
streets.
they don't stop nothing else. I mean, that narrative is so faulty. We just use that because it sounds good, but it's not true. People got their ass whooped and still did dirt. So it don't matter.
Exactly.
They was on punishment, whatever. People gonna do what they gonna do. So that argument is dead, and I don't even use that in school anymore because I know better. You
But
know.
that's why kids are so reactive. Like they're responding to violence, because when you upset parents and you did something that made them angry or they felt disrespected, how many of us are, you disrespected me, so you're in trouble?
Mm-hmm.
So the equalizer in that is, I'm gonna kick your ass, or I'm gonna fight you, or I'm gonna hurt you, or I'm gonna do this to you because you disrespected me. And so they are kind of conditioned to respond with violence.
Let me ask you this question, and I ask anybody this: what is your philosophy about if someone hits you, hit them back at school?
I grew up on that philosophy. But
Right.
all they did was I got into a whole lot of fights because people are gonna pull it. I do feel like it's a I taught my kids to defend themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said defend yourself, that if you were at risk of being harmed, then defend yourself. Take care of yourself. And if that means that you have to physically defend yourself, then do so. I think that if someone hits you, hit them back, hit them. Okay, so as little ones, so like when we have preschoolers, first grade, second grade, like little ones, right? You can say, if someone hits you, tell the teacher, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10 at that tender age, those kids are not unattended, or they should not be unattended. So there may be a adult present, or there should be an adult or present, that they can get immediate support if someone is harming them in that way. But when you start getting to middle school, a lot of my times where I was in fights happened in the bathroom. I was going to
Yes,
the
ma'am.
bathroom. There's no adults in there, right? They wait for you to go
Bathroom or
to the bathroom.
recess. Bathroom or
Recess, they go
recess.
in the locker room. They wait for you to go in these places where more than likely there's not going to be an adult present. So at that age, if someone hits you, defend yourself. Like, hit them back. Like, get prepared to defend yourself. So I think that we also need to be mindful of what our kids are up against. They may not be able to go and tell someone. So if someone's injuring them, and we know how serious physical altercations are getting now at such a young age, that defending yourself can be the difference between life and death. It could be the difference between. So it's so difficult to not tell your kid to defend themselves, because I want my kid to be safe. I want my kid to be okay. I don't want someone to throw you to the ground and stuff on your head because they're mad at you. And this happens. Someone has lost their child because of that, or have had kids that have been seriously or severely injured because of that. So you do have to tell your kids to defend themselves and be mindful, because they may not have the support of interaction from someone else or intervention from someone else in certain situations. What makes you ask that question?
Because that's like the top two, three, five reasons why people get in trouble at school. They usually not starting a fight, but they get caught finishing it, or whatever the case may be. And as a disciplinarian person at the school, I do know the rules of the school about putting hands on each other, but I also know the street rules and what mama say, what daddy say about what's going to put hands on you. So it's a very fine line. It's a very fine line. And I tell them that.
Yeah, to
I
tell
say, you
you.
know what? I get it. First thing I say, okay, they hit you first. Okay, hit them back. Okay, cool. And what they say, my mama
Because
said,
my mama said the same thing, and my mama
and
meant it.
so
So
and
when
so
the school
I
was
said,
called,
okay,
she would be like, "Who started it? Was she
right.
defending
And I said,
herself?
okay,
Then don't
cool. I
call me."
said, and so I say, I get it. I honestly get it. And I'm not upset at you for listening to your mom. I'm not. I can't be upset because that's
Mhm.
not normal and that's not right for you. It's confusing. I can't say your mom is wrong or your dad is wrong. All I can say is in the law, in the rule of the school, if you put hands on people, you get in trouble. But I try to give them more of a lenient grace depending on the situation
Mhm.
based on what happened. And
Right.
I don't mind telling the parent that. It's like, hey, this kid responded to this other kid hitting them, and I have had a conversation with them about it, but XYZ, I got to be fair because, like I said, it's hard. I can't say your mom and dad was wrong because that's your mom and dad, and I get it. I get it. They teaching you what they want to teach you for protection, self defense, and all the good like that. I go back to the person who started it and be like, you messed up because you the one that started it. Let's talk about that. But I say that because we talk about this being a reactionary thing. It seems to be one of those issues that we need to really look at and address. Coming in the door in school because that's the number one. That's like one of the main reasons that the kids come into my office. He hit me and I hit them back. I was like, well, why you hit him back? How come you couldn't just tell? I could have told, but my mama said, I'm like, okay, all right, I get it. but
So
I'm
my
teaching you.
question is, what happens when you have a student that does tell?
Well, that's the thing. If they tell, see, the problem is you're not in the classroom. I'm not in the classroom when it happens. I find out things after the fact. I'm never there
Hmm.
when I'm rarely in the room when something happens. That's what teachers don't understand. I'm being totally transparent.
Hmm.
I'm rarely in the room when it happens. So when I come in, it's literally like the police showing up to a crime scene. I have to piece together what's happening, and then and investigate and go from there. I have your report from the teacher or from whoever. I got the victim report, and I got the other report from the person who's the assailant.
Right.
I have to go through that process of conversating, and then it's like, okay, and I asked, did you tell the teacher? To answer your question, a lot of times teachers don't respond, or they don't respond quick enough, and because of that, that's how the violence starts.
And I think that that's an important detail to not like gloss over is that kids are experiencing the same things we're experiencing as adults, just as in a different way. So, like, imagine how you feel if you run and you go to the police station and you tell them that you were assaulted and they do nothing. They
Right,
take the report.
right.
That person is not gonna be arrested. Like, there's no
Nothing.
real investigation. It's just, I got your statement, got their statement. Why don't everybody just go home and go to their separate corners? Um, that happens so often to kids. And at a certain point, when you go tell the police that this happened and you don't get any results, that also allows for that person now to become more emboldened in how they hit you the next time.
They're
So
looking for blood.
the behavior escalates. And
They're
then
looking
you're
for
feeling,
revenge. They want revenge, plain and simple. And you be sitting there like, when they tell you this, when they tell you that, and like I said, I'm not in the classroom. The first thing I'm saying is I need the teachers to just be more cognizant. I know they got things going on. Take notes, acknowledge them. Okay, and then deal with that later. But at least acknowledge them. When you don't acknowledge the students, or you kind of like minimize the situation and everything, and they still hot and they still mad, you lost them at that point until depending on their level. So when I
and,
come in
you,
situations, I'm in there like, okay, thanks for letting me know. Thanks for letting me know. Whether I care or not, I don't. It's just like, thanks for letting me know. I'm gonna go talk to them.
Mhm.
They in their mind, not only are they heard, but now they like, okay, and then I might not talk to them right then and there because I got other things going on, but they will get talked to. That's a conversation. You know, and that's the thing. It's like they just want to be heard. Please acknowledge them. That's gonna be part of my
Acknowledge
thing.
them and be
Please acknowledge them.
proactive. Be proactive in making them feel like you not just heard what they said, but that it's important that it doesn't happen again. And I think that that's a lot of when you come to that point of, okay, nothing's going on, they're not protecting you, so you got to protect yourself, child. If someone hits you, you hit them back, because they're not stopping. When you have someone that gets away with a behavior, they rarely ever stop. Like, they rarely are going to quit. It's like, I got away with this, so I'm just a chicken when it comes to doing certain stuff. I've gone back into the store, like, I accidentally didn't pay for this. I've drove all the way back to the store to Blizzard, like, this don't belong to me, because I don't want that karma, right? But the typical kid and the typical person, if they get away with an action, they're going to repeat it because they got away with it. So there has to be like consequences to deter that from happening again. And that's with anything. Just moving it back to the recent events of everything, I feel like a huge issue and why these type of things and acts are continuing to go on is because there's rarely any consequences for when they do. There's rarely any consequences for when it does happen, whether it means that that person that did the shooting was met their demise before any action can be taken, or like this recent event with the Buffalo massacres, this person was taken into custody and had the audacity to say they plead not guilty.
Right. I mean, but once again, that just shows you how calculated this person was to even say that. That's a calculated answer. That's not nothing spur of the moment. He thought about this. He's
And
going to
it's
be,
also very bold in you. I can do this because everyone else has done it. So I don't think I did anything wrong because this happens all the time and people get away with it. And I expect to get away with it too.
you know what? I think he wants the attention of the trial. I think he wants the sensationalism and attention to be on trial. I think he never intended to die or kill himself because everybody else died, kill themselves. They
Hmm.
either die by police or kill themselves. He was the first one in a long time that's living to tell the tale in a long time. And I think that when the trial comes, he's going to represent. He's going to talk. He's going to talk, and more of this stuff is going to come out. I think he wants. I think he wants the notoriety. I truly do
But
believe.
if there wasn't going to be any of that as a result, if that wasn't something that was obtainable, would that have been, something that he wanted to do? Would it have gone down this exact way?
Well, yeah, look at it like this. To even start this up, it was calculated. I'm quite sure he planned this out. The body armor, everything he did was plotted and planned. You drove 2 hours. In that 2 hours, I'm quite sure he was even thinking then. He came in to escape to scope the place out prior to look at vantage points and mannerisms of people going in there and everything. He scouted it. This is somebody calculated. He's not just doing this and then like, oh, now everything is random. No, this is a calculated move, and he's going to wait. And the trial is going to be some eerie, scary stuff.
It
He's
is.
because he wants that. And and you're right. If they decide not to do that, but guess what? They're not going to do that. They're going to give him the camera. They're going to give him the lights, camera, action of flare effects because that's what they want for ratings. That's what they want to perpetuate this stuff, and it's going to cause more arguments because they're already arguing about what he had in his manifesto. They arguing about the people he shouted out in his manifesto. So it's like all of this is to be divisive. All of this is to be divisive. The media is going to use this to divide, but in the face of unification.
Hmm.
In the
It,
face of
does-
unification.
it
But
doesn't unify anything because
I
we're not on
mean,
one accord.
and then you look at it like this. You look at it like this. I don't know, and this is just me because I don't know. But when you look at the different people who are, or the different situations where people have done benefits and they've done stuff for the kids and everything like that, I want to see the reaction for not only but the Buffalo people, but for the people in Texas,
Mm,
because where's the celebrity outrage, the national celebrity outrage? Where are the support? Where are I'm gonna donate this? I'm gonna donate that. Ain't nobody doing that. Yeah, I ain't seen none of that.
at all.
Sandy Hook got it. The people in the Jewish church got it. You
Hmm.
know, the black church didn't get that. They got prayers. We get prayers. Other people get restitution.
All
Think
the time.
about that for a moment.
Oh, I think about it all the time. And
So
it's
that's another key piece that we're
Mhm.
looking at. Like somebody has said, we're not talking about Buffalo anymore. Like, yeah, we are, but this right here took over front page, and they're gonna put them both in the conversation because they're both fresh, and they both and they're dissecting the first killer, and they're trying to analyze the second killer right now, in the hopes of trying to alleviate a potential third killer, because it's a copycat situation now. People
Yeah.
people want this. People want to do this, and they're finding ways to do it.
They also want to do it because it's lucrative.
Is
Do you
what?
know it's lucrative? Do you know how many people that do stuff like this, what kind of funds they obtain because of that?
Oh,
Um,
the guy who shot up in Wisconsin. I mean, he's quiet now, but he was living a celebrity lifestyle for a minute. I ain't
all
googling
the
him to see what he's
time.
doing, but he's. I think they told him. I'm stuttering. I think they told him to sit down somewhere because you haven't heard a word from him within the last couple of months. But he was out
Okay.
there for a moment, taking pictures and showing up places. He's quiet now. They told him to sit down. Take your law. I mean, take your win and just sit down somewhere. Fade out of existence like George Zimmerman tried to do.
After he acted a plum fool for a long time first. He didn't
Somebody
just
had to
go
sit.
gentle into that good night.
Somebody told him to sit down too. But
Hmm.
he was doing that stuff because he liked the limelight. He liked
And
the
I think
notoriety.
that a lot of people that do this like the limelight. They like the camaraderie they get from it. They like the attention. They like all the things that come with that. The sensationalizing of it. It's just it's all it's all really sad. And before we end our conversation, I want to touch on the vicarious trauma of all of this and what's going on. Whether it's just the vicarious trauma of Buffalo and or it's this. And for some people they're feeling it one more than the other. Some
Mm-hmm.
people aren't feeling any of it because there are a lot of people are just numb and compassion
Yep.
fatigue right now. And
Yep.
then there are people like myself where I'm feeling all of it. I was completely devastated about Buffalo because, especially in recent years, before that, actually, for those that know me a long time, I was a stay at home mom once. So going to the grocery store, I would be at the grocery store for hours. I would leave stuff on purpose so I can go to the store because that was the only time that I literally had to myself where I wouldn't take the kids. And I had a 24-hour Jewel. It'd be 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd be in Jewel in the butter aisle just looking at
She
butters
said the
because
butter aisle.
I kid you not, because it was just my place to kind of go and like get a breath of fresh air and then go back and be on mommy duty because that was my reality, right? So I have kind of a very I'm always at the grocery store. Like even now, I always gotta go to the stores. I spend a lot of time going to the store. So hearing about what happened is like, holy crap, like, oh my gosh, like I'm at the store all the time and that's kind of scary. And then I have my son who is mommy's little protector. When I leave, I need to tell him exactly where I'm going. He has mapped out how long it takes for those events, each event to happen. So whether that's I'm going to the nail shop or I'm going to the grocery store, and I kid you not, he'll be like, well, what are you going to the grocery store to get? Are you going to get a few things or are you shopping? It'd be like, I'm shopping. Okay, so that should take you about an hour and 15 minutes. I kid you not, an hour and 15 minutes later, if I'm not back in this house, little man is calling me like, okay, you've been gone a while. I'm checking in to make sure you're safe and you're fine. So knowing about what happened in Buffalo was kind of triggering for him because his mom is always at the grocery store. He's always worried about that. So it's like hearing about that, what happened, and then as a parent, um, sending my kids to school was just one of those places where it was like, okay, they're at school, so they should be a little protected there. And then having this happen, it's like, no, they ain't even safe at school. So I have so many emotions. We are all entitled to those emotions. They are all warranted. I don't want anyone to feel like they can't or shouldn't be feeling a particular way. I don't want us arguing with each other on who's suffering the most when it comes to what's happened. All of this is horrific. All of it is something that should not be happening. No parent should ever go into a grocery store and be fearful of leaving or dropping their kids off at school and being fearful that they won't see them again. Like these are things that are abnormal. There are things that we should not have to be discussing, and we certainly shouldn't be divisive about them. We should all be saying, like, this is not freaking okay. And for all of those parents, like I know this morning was heavy because my timeline was flooded with parents like I almost called my kids off from school today, or I didn't want them to go today, or I'm so anxious about dropping them off today, or I sat in the parking lot. I've saw people post that they sat in the parking lot of their kids' school today, just kind of looking around and making sure they were safe. Parents showed up on time today. How much you want to bet when it was time to pick them babies up from school that parents were there today because they didn't want them in that building no longer than they had to be. Parents are counting down to the last day of school because that's one less place now they have to worry about where their kids are going because of this. And so I want you all to be taking care of yourself. I want you all to recognize that vicarious trauma is just as a detriment as you experiencing the trauma yourself, because as human beings, that is what keeps us connected, is when we feel for each other and we are making sure that we're treating everybody with humanity. So give yourself the space to feel every single emotion that you have today. Talk to somebody if you don't or if you haven't. Reach out to someone if you have someone to reach out to. Make sure you book that therapy appointment if you haven't, but definitely give yourself the space to feel every single thing that you're feeling today. Every single thing, even down to being frustrated about Juneteenth, because I know that a lot of people's mad about that damn ice cream, and I was one of them. Like to get that ice cream,
Why are
man.
you mad about the ice cream? Did you even taste the ice cream?
I'm mad about the ice cream because I am just tired of us not being able to have anything without somebody trying to dip their hand into the pot. Walmart ain't had no business. They ain't had no business.
Target does it.
Target, nobody has no business. I will say that one of the things that I was very happy about this past Black History Month, Target partnered with Black clothing entrepreneurs. So their stuff that they had that was Black history focused came from Black folks. That is okay. I'm okay with that. Like that's
How
okay.
you? So how do you know? How do you, I'm being funny? How you know that even though we did research on the owners, how do you know they didn't consult or have black consultants with this, and even though they're not on the paperwork, they was in the room.
They ain't had no damn consultants.
Just
They
say,
just
hey, that's a cool idea. Let's
mm-mm.
let's go ahead and do that for the blacks.
Man, Great Value is a Walmart brand.
Yes,
It's Great
somebody's in the marketing
Value.
team is black.
That's a look. Don't you start with me today, Dre.
No, I'm being honest. I'm being funny, but it's
Was
honest.
someone
Like,
there black, or was someone, did someone else say, hey, because let's be honest, when black folks barbecue, what is one of the main desserts we're gonna have at least for the kids?
I don't know. I don't have kids. I don't feed anybody anything. I
But you
eat what
done
I
been
want.
to a black barbecue.
I don't
You
mess
done
with
been to a
desserts.
black bar that we always got ice cream. Like
Ice cream, ice cream. But I mean,
if
ice cream
you
and
grew
cake.
up,
Yeah,
hold
it's
on now.
always
If you
cakes and
grew up in
pies,
the hood,
cakes and
yes,
pies, cakes and
I'm
pies,
I'm here to kind of debate
and
that
cobbler.
we kind of just started to really get into cakes and pies because when I was a kid and it was a family barbecue, you had that big old tub of ice cream and you had ice cream cones and every kid
Everybody won
had
able.
a
Son say,
cone.
everybody won able. We didn't have all.
No, but that's why you could go to Aldi and get that big old
He said,
tub
"Look,
of that Neapolitan container of ice cream, that big tub of ice cream.
I
Now
know."
we weren't able all the time either when I was a kid, but that
Okay,
tub was
so
from
okay, so
Aldi's.
Neapolitan ice cream.
Ice cream cones from Aldi's was like 60 some cent, and you could get that whole big old tub of ice cream for a couple dollars. Literally, it was
So they
like two
hooked
or
you up
three
with some
dollars.
red velvet ice cream. They hooked you up with some red velvet ice. It was a good flavor. Red velvet
They
ice cream.
stole that from somebody else, and I think that that was already shown that there's a black owned ice cream company that already had that
That
flavor
that
out there, and so that wasn't something that they did to consult. Well, they should have just
is the
bought
flavor
that
patented?
stuff.
Is the flavor patented? I don't know. Was the flavor patented? I don't know. I'm
But
asking.
see, again, going back to that whole way that they do things in capitalize, capitalist America. So what if it wasn't? If you know that someone already had the idea, why rob them of that?
So if somebody pops up this winter on some Black Santa stuff, do I do I go ballistic?
If they calling themselves Dreezy Claws,
Oh hell yeah, they gonna burn. Oh yeah, yeah.
okay, then yes, you absolutely need to start contacting lawyers and you
Yes,
need to get on the horn. But
yes.
before there was a Drizzy Claus, there's always been this conversation of having black representation in Christmas. So there's always been that conversation. But you were the first on my radar to do it like how you did it, where you went blackity black. You got the locks, you got the beard, where like it's luxurious. It's not the beard that we're used to with non-black Santa, right? It's like it really was representative of black men in our culture. So if you were to come across somebody this Christmas season calling themselves Dreezy Claus, I want you to call up your lawyers ASAP because they have robbed you. Just the same as I'm noticing a lot of things that I have, done popping up in places where it's like it happens to me at work all the time where I'll come up with an idea and then it'd be like someone took my idea and ran with it. And I don't, and they're not black folks that are taking these ideas. They're
Mm,
others that are taking this idea. So
mm.
historically, black people have not been allowed to profit from their own intellectual property. Other people are profiting from it, and that's not okay.
Yes, I
Jewelry
agree.
is something that we've always felt kind of like I've always had an issue with the 4th of July because
But Juneteenth just became big nationally last year.
nationally, but I know
No, was it
tons.
last year or was it 2020?
It was 2020, but no, but
Yeah.
I can honestly say that I've known people that have historically always talked
Oh
about
yeah,
this
I do. No, I have to. No,
and
I have
celebrated
to.
the
No, trust me.
magnitude
Yo,
of
yeah,
it.
I've been. Yeah,
So I
exactly.
think
I
that it just
understand.
became mainstream in the past couple of years. And I think that that's happened because there was this awakening where it was like, that is not our Independence Day. We were not independent on
So,
July
so what?
4th,
So now that it's
1772.
so now that Juneteenth is to the world, shared to the world, we didn't do a good job. We was happy that it was shared. Now we can all celebrate, get our days off. We got our days off now. Don't everybody's happy about the days off, but no
Mm-hmm.
one thought about protecting the bag because no one thought about somebody looking at Juneteenth over there like,
Because
we can
we
do
didn't,
we can do a
so,
Juneteenth special at McDonald's.
but in
Hmm.
all
We could
fairness,
do
though,
we could do a Juneteenth special at Jules for
here,
barbecue
here,
night.
here is
Whatever
why
they
I
do,
don't think
whatever them
anyone
black folks
thought
do on
about that.
Juneteenth.
But here's why I think no one thought about that. We are fighting right now within the country for Black history to be adequately taught in US history. And a lot of people are getting like caught up in them renaming it. I feel like calling it critical race theory was a lot to kind of like make it seem like it was just so bad, but we are fighting like there. How many schools or children do you know didn't have any kind of Black history programming this year or the year before that? So we're fighting for people to even acknowledge anymore what our history is and how it is US history. It's the United States of America history, but we're fighting for it to be taught effectively and across the country. So why would we think that someone would want to celebrate Juneteenth? They're ignoring it. They're acting like it didn't even exist in a lot of ways. They don't even want to talk about it, except for when it's holding some sort of monetary value. So I don't think people thought to secure the bag when it came to Juneteenth because we thought y'all didn't want no parts of that.
They want that, but guess who were the ones who made it nationally available? It wasn't us. It wasn't white people that made it so. So they had control over it to make it mainstream. They gonna put their hands in it. I
And we
wasn't
have to be
surprised.
like,
Put it like
we,
this: I wasn't surprised. I can't be upset in the sense of being like outraged because I'm not surprised.
I wasn't
I'm not
surprised.
surprised.
I
So
wasn't
now that I've
surprised.
seen it, my
Mm-hmm.
thing was the ice cream at least good? Y'all taste the ice cream? I
Oh,
mean,
no,
at this point,
I look, I was
at this
super, and I
point, and
and
this
I
ain't
was
even
having this
this ain't even tip of the
conversation.
iceberg. This
No,
look, it ain't even
I
Juneteenth yet. We haven't
look
seen the last of the iceberg. It's gonna be some more
on
companies,
on
more
Juneteenth.
organizations doing all of this stuff. We're gonna have Juneteenth barbecue stuff at Jules before you know it. Okay,
Mm-mm.
and
On
Mariano specials.
Juneteenth, on Juneteenth, we all need to be putting that money in the Black community. That should
Absolutely.
be a part of Juneteenth. That should
Absolutely.
be that should be the standard for Juneteenth.
Absolutely.
That no matter what you
Absolutely.
do for Juneteenth, you do Black. And that is
Absolutely.
what it needs to be. That's what it was last year, which I had this conversation. I think Kawana posted it because she was kind of like, "Why is ice cream so bad?" And I was like, "Man, because it's not profiting who is supposed to be celebrating. It's supposed to be profiting us." And someone posted that they didn't see a whole lot of that communication previously, but last year I saw tons and tons of posts like, "This is a Black supermarket. This is a Black place to do this. This is a Black owned business. Go here for this. Don't buy your party supplies here. If you all the party planners that and caterers, list your stuff here. The Black owned caterers."
Mm-hmm.
So we were trying to start that
Mm-hmm.
message
Mm-hmm.
last year, and we need to consistently
Mm-hmm.
put that in the forefront. That part of the Juneteenth festivities and celebrations is about putting Black dollars into Black people's pockets,
I
and that
agree.
is part of keeping the independence alive and what it's supposed to be about celebration of. And that means I don't want your damn great value ice cream. I don't want it. Okay, I don't even want all these ice cream for Juneteenth. I'm trying to find some of this Black owned ice cream. I'm on the hunt to find the one that the cream malicious banana pudding.
So so listen. So Tessa, how long has she been in business, and how come we're just not hearing about her?
Because we that isn't something. I feel like it's partly us. When you start asking people about like ice cream that they gonna go and get, it be Haagen Dazs. People are gonna go like we're creatures of habit too. We're gonna go with what we know.
Well,
So,
see, I think for me, I'm a fan of Shawn Michelle's over there in Bronzeville.
haven't been yet, but I'm hoping to go.
You should go.
I'm
Okay, you
planning
see.
on going.
So you
Mm-hmm.
should do that. So you should do that, and then on top of that, on top of that, there was Kilwins. I think Kilwins is still active. I don't think the High Park location is active, but I know they got the downtown location and the
Mm-hmm.
one they Pier. Kilwins is Black owned by a sister, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two entities that do ice cream. There's also I know it until my tongue. They're on the south side. If I Google it, it'll pop up. But I can't remember the name of it right now. But I used to see them in the barbershops. Always stopping in the barbershop and selling like their ice cream and stuff like that. And I used to get a couple of whatever. Hold on. Ice Cream Chicago. Let me see. What's the name of it? Hold on.
We need a
Richards.
whole post.
Richards.
We
Richards.
need a whole post, Dre. We
Richards.
need you to make
Richards
a
Super Premium.
whole post where it's like, don't buy this great value. But they pulled it already. That's a whole lot of ice cream that's melting somewhere.
So yeah, you got Richards Super Premium Ice Cream, been around for years.
Mhm.
It's on 110th and Langley. Okay, but they have this. They specialize in ice cream. Their specialty is banana pudding ice cream. Delicious. They have there's a few other spots I heard about. I think Ohana might be Black. I don't know for sure. Kilwins temporarily closed in Hyde Park. Kilwins on Michigan Avenue. Oh, B&B on Racine, eight off 830 Racine. I
Okay,
love that spot.
I'm gonna say it one more again. I'm gonna need you to make a whole post so we could share it. Share it, because
So I'm
people.
saying, I'm saying there are places that we can go. So you're right. I'm gonna do that just for you. I'm gonna do that.
Oh, and you don't understand. Ice cream is truly like one of
Well, you need to get up on what's
my
going on in the hood.
look. I love me some ice cream. I love it, love it, love it. It's one of my favorite sweet indulgences is ice cream. I'm a big ice cream person. So I plan on visiting some of these places, but you know what I do plan on not visiting ice cream for? Walmart. I don't want no great value culture vulture ice cream. I don't want it.
I'm cool with
I don't
that.
want it. I don't want it. Well, we go hop off here.
Yes, ma'am.
And Dre, I always love when you come on. Thanks for stepping in.
Thank you for the entity. Thank you for the ear. I can get off my chest now. I feel good now. I
You
feel a
feel
lot
better.
better.
Sometimes you just gotta talk about it. You gotta talk about it. It's all part of the healing journey. But thank you for talking about it with me.
Appreciate it.
I
Can I do a
appreciate
quick
it.
plug right quick?
Of course you can. What you thought?
Well, I am a board member with the Healing Academy.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
yes.
and we are organizing an event for men this upcoming June, pre Father's Day, a virtual conversation. You're the first to hear it, so we're doing it. The flyer's coming out soon, so it's going to be on the 12th, June 12th, virtual event. It's called Father to Son. I'm gonna put it out there to you, Father to Son, the pursuit of generational love and legacy.
I love it. I love,
And
love,
a lot of
love it.
things you were talking about pretty much is what we're going to be talking about as well.
I can't wait. Cause
So yes,
I can't wait to see it. I also was like, dang, I wish that, I could kind of move around the way I want to because I would have loved to have had a Black Father's Juneteenth barbecue because
it's a lot
Juneteenth
going
is
on that day.
on. It is, but
Father's Day, it's a lot
a
going on.
Juneteenth is on Father's Day this
Yes,
year, or Father's Day is on Juneteenth this year.
yes.
And I feel like it was a beautiful opportunity. It may be something out there to really talk about and break the narrative on that Black fathers aren't out here fathering because they
I think
are.
what I think what we can do. I think what we could do is to really make a call to really have because I used to do what I used to do with the Smith Center, my nonprofit. I used to do yearly tributes to mothers and fathers. I did video tributes to mothers and fathers, and it'll be like a slideshow with music and everything like that. I did
That
one
was
for
dope.
mothers. I did one for fathers. I haven't done it in the last few years, mainly because I'm dealing with the grief of losing my own grandfather. So it was kind of hard to get the energy to do all of that. But I do want to get back to that. But I want to showcase dads. I'm going to post a video later on so you can see what it was.
Okay, we
But
need
I
to chat
really
offline because
okay.
I got some ideas even for it to like contribute to that because I think that would be an amazing video to like really focus and uplift that we're
Oh man,
celebrating.
it's really dope. It's just a
It's
slideshow of
more,
music,
it's more.
slideshow of music and everything like that. But I want to definitely expound on it and do more production with it because it's just me. But I haven't done it in a few years. I want to go back to it. I don't have time to do it this year. I might. I take that back. I might be inspired to do it. I got some time. It doesn't take that long to do it, but I gotta just go through the process. So I might do it because I feel like I need to do it.
Well,
But
then we need to already put it out there that if you are a Black father and have photos with your Black children, or some sort of photo of you out here Black fathering, um, give us those photos, message them so we can have them so you can already start building your content because I think that would be phenomenal because I do think that that's something that is a narrative that needs to be done away with. Black fathers are out here and there's a lot of fathers, Black fathers that are out here loving on their kids, providing for their kids, being active in their children's lives. And by active I mean in all aspects of it, whether it's the child rearing portion, or making sure financially they're together, or showing up to recitals and, baseball games, or, whatever kind of events their kids are having. Like fathers are out here kissing boo boos and patching up ouchies as well. And I really would love for us to change that narrative because I know some dope and amazing Black fathers that are out here really, really doing it and really loving on their babies. And so I think, especially while there's so much happening in the world, we need to celebrate Black parenting and Black fatherhood because all of us together is going to keep our kids safe, keep our
I'm
kids
gonna go
healthy.
ahead. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and put it to task and make it work. I got so much going on with work
I
and
know.
other stuff. I'll be like, but I'm gonna go
Mhm.
ahead and dedicate my time to do it because I love doing it. I love doing it. I have the
This
perfect song. I have the perfect song I always play, and it's just a beautiful moment. I just want to highlight dads. That's it.
I think that's dope. I say let's do it. Let's do
All right.
it.
All right, cool, cool, cool.
We
We'll
gonna
do.
hop off this live. Thank y'all for joining us today. We will be back with more. Oh, we gonna talk in 2 weeks. We are bi-weekly now on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. And hopefully we'll have our amazing co-host Nat back. She had some prior engagements this evening, but I'm always loving it when Dre come on. I keep trying to say that he's also like an honorary host, but he just be trying not to take the title. But we
I could do honorary. That's good. I appreciate that. I could do
because
honorary.
I mean, you like a staple on here. Like people know you. They be like, Dre's back. And I love that you on here talking for the men. And so yeah, we're gonna have you back too because we are gonna still have that conversation about black male protection and talking about
Yeah,
what that looks like. I feel like when we talk about protection, we only talk about protecting women and children, but black men need protection in more ways than we are willing to admit. And sometimes they need protection from us too. Just like we said, sometimes men are protective of us and they're actually the people we need protection from. We got some real toxic black women out there too that's hurting and causing detriment to black men, whether they are adult men or their sons. So we need to talk about
speak
that.
on that. I got stories about that too. Yeah.
So that means you're coming back for that?
Whatever, if I can, yeah, definitely.
Okay, it's two
Anything,
weeks from now. Go on and put it in your calendar.
not the second Wednesdays because I'm usually at the lodge on those days. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, well, we gonna talk about that then because I would love your perspective on that because you always have some dope stuff on that. So we will stay tuned on that. We stay tuned on that, y'all. Thank y'all for being with us tonight. Have a good night. Remember self care. It's been a lot going on. Take care of yourselves, mental health wise, and allow yourself to be human and feel all the things you're feeling today. It is okay. And so we'll talk to y'all soon.